Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, major patch update arriving last night affecting the meta weapons here that the pros are currently using in Black Ops 6. Big frustration, however, because the recoil in large part has been massively reduced, it seems, on these guns. That means the pros believe we're moving into an anti-skill meta where the skill gap is diminished and it takes no difference between the pro players in terms of how well they can actually shoot these guns straight. Is this true? Is there a little bit more to this than initially meets the eye? Have the developers majorly moved in the direction of a no skill gap Call of Duty over the last few years? What's it going to mean for the competitiveness at the top of the field in the CDL this season? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, just thought I'd look back at this. CWL Goodbye Tour mentions Mr. Adam Apicella. Of course, he's now working again with ESL Face It and a group over there. But just to look at, because I know a lot of you guys won't have even been watching back in the pre-CDL days, this was the CWL event season that year. This was effectively franchising before franchising this season. It was still open, but there were like 16 teams that got invited to all of the events. There was an open tournament at the event, and it was kind of like a hybrid year. And, you know, I'd prefer to go back to a format similar to Black Ops 4 than what we currently have. But the first event was in Vegas right at the start of December, which, yeah, we don't seem to get very often anymore. Then there was Fort Worth, then there was London. I mean, man, that was a good time. Then Anaheim a couple of weeks later only. Miami was the playoffs. And then, of course, the World Championship at the end of the year. So good times. We'll get back there at some point, maybe. Falcons, they're out there in the States now. Of course, we know that the main team's been out there in the States, but it's also true for the academy. So here they are at the setup. I'm not exactly sure where they are. I know that some people were saying this looks like the American Airlines Center on the left-hand side here, so this might just be the, well, basically this is where the OpTic setup was, wasn't it? Weren't like the Envy HQ, wasn't it, right about here? I'm not exactly sure if that's what that is, but I think it does kind of look like it. So, yeah, I don't know. They've got a nice setup anyway. They're not playing out of Brian State's apartment, right? Like, these guys, understandably, they've got the best stuff. And the main team has been there, of course, for a few days, and now the academy team is there as well. I think Looty mentions that as well and says this, yeah, for anyone who's not aware, our academy roster is also fully Saudi and will compete within North American challenges this year. They've been practicing in Europe and came over to Dallas yesterday, an insane amount of talent and potential. King apparently is also potentially a next up player to look out for. Maybe I should drop him a follow. We'll see. If he fries, I'll follow. That's how it tends to go. So, yeah, intrigued to see the direction of Falcons, right? Because we know that looking at their starting roster right now, we have some potential. Khalid, he can shoot straight for sure. Roxas is probably not their best player, but he's okay. Exnid is one of the other potential straight shooters. King of Body has struggled so far. And honestly, even looking back to the World Cup, he had a bit of a rough time. So I think if there's anyone to get replaced first on Falcons, it's probably going to be King of Body, and maybe just King comes in, I don't know, instead or something like that. The question, of course, that everyone has is, Falcons and other esports, we know they've got bread. I mean, look at the bread that is on display right here. It's pretty evident what's happening. They could come along and say, all right, we're going to sign some big name players from another big name team. They may well, and probably will, let's be honest, do that at some point into the future. The question is, though, they've got their main team, they've got their academy. If they want to make changes, they're probably going to swap between those two respective teams for now, in a similar way to what Miami are probably going to do and say, look, we're just going to form the team with the 4 best Spanish players, and that's how it's going to be. Falcons want to do the same thing with the 4 best Saudi players. The question, of course, is for Looty and for Clayster in the longer term, is that enough to win championships? You know, unlikely as it presently stands. They may need to bring talent in from elsewhere, but the fact that their academy team is there shows that that's not going to be top of mind. I mean, if they're going to make a change, are they going to sign Hook or, you know, some other top challengers player, or are they going to bring in the best of their academy? That's probably what they're going to do first, and then they'll see if that works, and 6 months down the line, they may change strategy to some degree. Let's talk though about the meta change, because yesterday, they changed the aims, they changed the Jackal, the 2 weapons that have been used, and to be fair, they changed other weapons as well, marginally. But one of the big changes, pretty much the main change that's noticeable here, is on the lack of visual recoil. Now, this has been a very controversial argument, I would say, for the last few years in COD, and it's kind of fascinating to see what happens when the visual recoil is removed, because back in the day, it did exist, visual recoil. I'm thinking Black Ops 2, for example. The gun would move as the weapon moved. there was a bit of visual recoil on the weapon, and usually it was, you know, you could see the muzzle flash and stuff like that, which was a little bit distracting. And even in COD Ghost, you guys remember, there was the, I forget what they called it, like flash HyDra or something like that. Flash suppressor maybe or something, where you could either equip a silencer to your gun or a suppressor, a muzzle brake, which is basically long barrel, or you could use like flash suppressor, which did nothing. All it did was dull down your muzzle flash as if it was a silencer. So, you know, because we know that one of the advantages in COD of using a suppressor is that you don't get the muzzle flash, which is distracting. At least that used to be a conversation topic. It isn't really so much nowadays because the game has changed. But back in the day, visual recoil and visual effect when you were shooting were a big deal, but they weren't actually as big of a deal as the recoil of the weapon. Nowadays, it's kind of the opposite of what you find. A lot of the recoil is visual, especially, I think it was really Infinity Ward, I imagine, that introduced this first, like back in MW19 and stuff like that, when the guns were very accurate, but they felt like they weren't so accurate. So we'll discuss what that means here in a second. But yeah, the aims, the range of it has actually been decreased slightly, which is, you know, relatively considerable. We also have this for the Jackal. So post-patch, the damage is down, but the range is up. At least maximum damage range, the damage is down, but in the medium damage range, the range is up, and as is, you know, so I don't really know if these changes were necessary, to be honest, but that's what they're doing. They're also increasing the headshot multiplier, so I don't ever know if that's really a good idea. The other thing they did is this, reduced visual recoil on all full auto weapons, especially, well, all weapons, especially full auto guns, and these are the other things they changed as well. Now, that makes the game feel very strange in the hands of a good player, or really in the hands of anyone. This is the new aims. Now, you got to keep in mind here, these guys who I'm showing these clips of are good. They are going to be pulling down on the left stick, on the right stick, and controlling the recoil just a little bit. But look how laser beamy this weapon is now. Now, look, let's be honest here. Treyarch back in Black Ops 4, you could run double grip on the ICR, and it became a literal laser beam. And it's been a thing in the past as well. I don't know if it's a massive deal, but I do think the pros are understandably looking at this and saying, we want it to be a little bit more skillful. This, for example, is Havoc's POV using the aims and then also using the Jackal in a second, and you can tell there's a tiny bit of recoil. Like, the gun is kicking a bit and he has to control it a little bit, but the gun doesn't move at all. Like, there's no muzzle, I mean, there is muzzle flash, but there's no, you know, kick of the weapon, which is only visual. And this is the Jackal. Now, you can, again, clearly see there is still vertical recoil. In fact, it's the same amount of vertical recoil and horizontal recoil that there used to be, but you just don't feel it as much or see it as much because the, you know, the visual recoil is gone. So this has been, to me, surprisingly controversial, actually, because the weapon is performing the same from a recoil perspective, but I do agree that it makes the game feel way easier. And, well, this is what Nameless says. Visual recoil has been reduced to the point it couldn't be easier to shoot. Everything's a laser beam now. And as Miles says, which is maybe a fair point, like, was visual recoil just forcing us to compensate? But, and maybe it's more fun now. But Nameless is like, it's actually jarring, it's too easy to shoot, and I totally get that over the last few years. But, you know, Lunchtime points out that, yeah, the recoil of the guns, this is the XM4, or this is the XMG, or whatever, the recoil is the same, like, there's no changes. It's just visually, you guys can tell with the XM4, look at it on the left-hand side, just watch it play out on the left-hand side for the XM4, look how much the gun is bouncing all over the shop. And then on the right-hand side, if we play it again, the gun is far more stable, right? Like, the iron sights sit far more stably here, which makes it feel like the weapon has less recoil, but actually it doesn't. But even if the weapon isn't technically any easier to shoot straight, it does feel easier, and it does make the game, in Dashy's opinion, feel more boring. So I wanted to share what Dashy and Shotzzy had to say on this, and then maybe what Treyarch could actually do about it.
What the fuck?
Hello?
This shit's not moving!
Okay, well,
oh my god.
This is not moving!
Ah!
Wait, yo, shoot the Jackal! Shoot the Jackal! God!
I don't think they meant to do that.
Wait.
Yo.
Like, I hate this AR sucks, bro. It's horrible TTK wise, and now it's not moving, bro. Like, bro. Like, this is not fun. This shit is, there's no dope. Bro, we gotta get like skill gap back in. How do we get skill gap back in? I don't like this AR, dude. It's like, it's not that it's obviously better, but it's like, bro, this is like, I don't like how anybody is gonna be able to shoot across the map with, we're gonna have to start GAing shit. Like, we're gonna have to start GAing or adding some skill here. Like, I'm not even gonna touch my right stick. I'm not even gonna touch my right stick, and I'm at aim head level. Watch, I'm not even gonna touch my right stick. I don't, dude, this gun is so boring to use right now, man. I'm not liking this anti-skill meta right now. Hey, there's no way we play with this, right? This is so boring. KSV is better than this shit. If any gun's better than this gun, I promise you it's 2 OP. This shit borderline basically broken, bro.
Wait a minute, can you not? Oh yeah, we're good. Thank God. Yeah, I don't like what they did this game. It takes no skill now. I'm not even trolling either. I mean, deadass, just off that kill. Like, obviously I have a good shot, but like, bro, like, come on, dude. I didn't even try there. That was my first fucking, like... Now anyone can aim? Nah, they gotta revert this shit. I'm not even trolling. Who agrees? They have to revert this shit. I mean, deadass, there's 0 recoil. 0 recoil and there's catfishes on the map. Fuck did they do this game? Wow, I missed there.
So I think fundamentally there's still skill in this game. There's still skill in shooting, and the recoil control may even make a bit more sense now than it used to, because before you're trying to control for like visual stuff, whereas now it's just straight up what you see is what you get type thing. I'd love to see a world where the recoil goes up again, right? We actually introduce more recoil into the weapons, like we used to have back in the day. And as I say, over the last few years, it's kind of changed to where the developers will make the weapons actually easier to use, but they'll kind of trick you by putting the visual stuff in, and now that's not really what we have. But it's understandable the pros are looking at this and saying, yeah, you know, the game feels less skillful than it used to be. I'm not sure there is going to be much difference in professional play, because yes, shooting is a bit of a skill gap and will still remain that way, I would say, but the big skill gap between the pros, at least the best pro teams and not the best pro teams, comes down to teamwork and coordination and chemistry and, you know, strategy and team play and just execution in general. So I don't think it's a massive deal, but I do understand why the pros aren't so happy about it, and I think the best conclusion may be just to, at least from now onwards, start to increase the actual recoil a bit. I mean, I'm happy that visual recoil is gone. I never really liked it. I think that maybe the guns should just kick a little bit more, certainly for some of the weapons. But as I say, you know, we've had guns in the past that have been laser beams, like the NV4 in Infinite Warfare was a laser beam, pretty much, and that was very fun to use. So, you know, I kind of agree with Dashy about the aims. It's not the most fun gun, but it's not just as fun in general as previous ARs that we've had. So Dashy says, time for the AR council meeting. We're going to discuss with the boss later, because, yeah, with the aims getting nerfed and the changes and now the Jackal getting even better, there are some concerns as to whether it might be time to bring back another gun. I mean, we saw a few minutes ago, the XM4 still kicks quite a lot. There is maybe an argument to say, could we bring the XM4 back in? Could we un-GA the XM4? These are interesting questions that I would like to know your thoughts on in the comments section below. Just one thing to close out the video here, thought was kind of fascinating, it from Doug Leeb. So this game is quick, as we know. These dots, these grey ones, count up effectively the pace of the game over last year's title, right? So the matches that have happened in 2024. And these dots represent the duration of the game, how long it lasted, from 400 seconds up to 800 seconds of some quick to very slow hardpoint games that took their time. But this on the other axis is engagements per minute. So really what you're looking at here is the x-axis in terms of how fast the game was. Like, basically you take the duration, you divide it by the total number of engagements, and you pretty much find your answer. These red dots are the games that have been played so far here in Black Ops 6, and already you can see they skew massively right of the average last year. In fact, the Texas versus Boston map 1 was the fastest map that we have had all year of the past 2 seasons. So, and actually, if you look at, I mean, this was even a couple of days ago now, before we even saw the rest of the weekends, but there are a few maps here that already would be absolute fastest maps that we have really seen over the last couple of years. So, yeah, it's a quick game. maybe favors the SMGs, maybe favors the ARs, depending on your perspective, but right now the Jackal seems to be the weapon that is the go-to, and Shotzzy's maybe not so happy about the changes, but he's still probably pretty happy about the state of the game in general. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.